come to the knife with you come to a gunfight with a knife, you're in trouble, right? So if you know it's a gunfight and we have the gun, why are you getting all, where's the bravado from? Where's the bravado coming from, right? If I see all this bravado and you know it's a gunfight and you have a knife in your hand, I'm thinking to myself, all right, this person's actually off their meds, or it's not just a knife that they have something else that I don't know about. That's like the ghetto version. So the idea is, if we recognize, prior to the game, all of this happens prior to the game, if we recognize that both parties acknowledge the fact that Power 1 is militarily superior to Party 2, yet Party 2 is still continuing to escalate the conflict, then what ends up happening is I recognize that the reason why they're escalating is because they might have something, they have the secret weapon, right? They have something that I don't know. And this is where Rumsfeld's unknown comes in, right? They might be escalating because that action tells me, because they've done that, now I recognize there's something I don't know that I don't know. The unknown would infer, again, from the last discussion, I would be able to infer, maybe, hopefully wrongly, that they might have something that I don't know about. They could be bluffing as well. Limited information can lead to bluffing. But they also might have some secret weapon that I don't know about. So I got to be careful when I engage these people, because you know we can beat you out. You know we have a better, more equipped military force. So why are you escalating? Why are you escalating? Well, if it's a gunfight and you are waving a knife, but really in your back pocket you got a bazooka, well, you're brandishing the knife, but you really have something that I'm not prepared for, right? The unknown. So you try your best to try and plan for those unknown factors, but there's only so much you can do. The likelihood of that is relatively small, though it is consideration needs to be made in strategic planning for as best as possible for the unknown. You really can't plan for it, but you try as best as you can. Probably what's happening, or it is a last desperate attempt of a failing regime to preserve power. And this is the example of power transition theory. If it's the case that they recognize or they perceive, right, the regime, this is 2, this is 1, right? If it is that they recognize, and it doesn't have to be anything as grandiose as this, but if they recognize, 2, that this is an encroachment and we're going to completely absolve all of the structures that they have, then they don't have anything to lose. It's like, I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees, right? It's that mentality, right? I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees. If they think, yeah, I know it's a gunfight, but all I have is a knife, and the threat from you is so overwhelming, right? The threat from you is so overwhelming that I think that you're just going to destroy everything. Well, I'm going to give it one last big hurrah, and I'm going to give you everything I have, despite the fact that I know I'm going to be defeated, right? If that's the case, then what you need to do as Power 1 is you need to mitigate the level of power, right? If you overdo it, right? If you present too much of a threat, then you can trigger sort of this desperation in the population, and especially the regime, to where, okay, we're going to kill everybody, including ourselves, right? This is sort of how, at least, I don't know, specific, well, actually, I'm not even going to address that. So, that's that. Okay. The use of intelligence in strategic planning. So I want to just use this as an example, and I'm not going to give necessarily an answer. I'm just going to read it, and I'll let you guys talk about it amongst yourselves. I'm not going to put in my 2 cents. Critical thinking. Think about this scenario. Given the following information, determine the most likely course of engagement. So here's what you know. Assume that you are the first party. So this is you. Right? Number 1. 2's power is being challenged, and power transition is highly possible. So 2's power is being challenged, not by you, by some third party, right? So we'll say 3. This is me. This is Party 2. And there's some third power challenging the power of Party 2. So, critical thinking. Given the following information, determine the most likely course of action. Assume, and this is, I'm trying to keep it really general so that you can sort of think through this, right? Assume you are the first party. Number 2, the power of State 2 is challenged, and power transition is highly possible. 2 is militarily, 2, however, is militarily more well-equipped than you and poses a significant threat. So their power is threatened by an outside force, but they are militarily superior to you, and they pose a greater military threat to you than you pose to them. So their power is being challenged. Obviously, you guys are in a non-competing, non-cooperative game. There's obviously conflict here. However, they have more military power than you do. They pose a bigger threat to you than you pose to them. There's a potential internally, probably intrastate, from some oppositional force that is combating Party 2. 2 is militarily more well-equipped than you and poses a significant threat. Number 3, you have the private knowledge. Now we can talk about information to incorporate the whole discussion. I have the private knowledge, number 1 has the private knowledge that the opposition is sympathetic to our cause. The opposition is sympathetic to our cause. Number 4, you have the means, number 1 has the means to privately equip the opposition. Based on this information, do you escalate or de-escalate the conflict? Based on this information, you can only make 2 choices, right? Based on this information, and you can't choose both because it's non-exclusive disjunct, right? You can't have A and B. So based on this information, do you escalate or de-escalate the conflict? No. Be sure to consider all of the information that was given. So I'm not going to answer that in any of these videos. I leave that for you guys to debate. And I think if you are able to understand that question, and you are able to answer the question, and you're able to justify your answer to that question, then you understand not only the war strategic analysis, but you really understand the idea of the role of perfection, commitment, and the use of information in game and strategic analysis. So with that being said, I want to thank you very much for taking the time to watch my series. I will continue the discussion. I'm Dr. Jason J. Campbell. Have a good day.